This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Well, Sydney, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Very excited to have you here. Chris and I both love to have mission-driven, good people like you on the podcast. So this is exciting.
Yeah, we were supposed to record a little while ago, and you broke your elbow or you hurt your elbow. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. I dislocated and broke my dominant hand elbow. It was impressive, and I figured I would have surgery and be, back, not playing tennis, but doing all the normal things. And I am over a month out and nowhere near that.
Well, trampolines are dangerous. That's why.
You should see the other guy.
Women who have had 3 children don't go on trampolines to start with. So I can guarantee you that it was not.
Right there with you.
Yeah, I just assumed, my first thought literally was like trampoline accident. That's what it sounds like. Well, thanks for coming on. Why, you're in Miami, correct?
I'm in Boca, actually, about an hour.
Boca. That's Lisa's old stomping ground.
I love Boca. I lived there for 4 wonderful, wonderful years.
Wow. Yeah, we moved down during the pandemic. So we've been there about 4 years.
It's wonderful.
Did they talk about Lisa?
Yes, of course.
If you go to the Boca Resort, they might have a picture of me hanging up. I mean, it could be a mugshot. It could be a picture. We don't know. I'm just
The
kidding.
Boca Resort that they now call themselves
The Boca Raton.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, why don't you tell us about, we've spoken a few times over the years. Why don't you tell us about MRK Partners, which is the firm that you founded?
Yeah. So I founded MRK in 2015, really just with the thought process of, being in the affordable space and really doing well and doing good and wanting to provide kind of exceptional affordable housing, but under a little bit of a different lens. I think I am obviously a mom. I'm a woman, and I think about real estate. I think about location and all of those things really differently. Just really having kind of that in mind, and then wanting to build kind of a culture both internally and then externally that was really resident focused and also, growth focused. And so, that's what we've done over we just had our 10-year milestone earlier this year, which is really exciting. And yeah, thank you. So now, we're about 6,000 units and bi-coastal. So we have an office in LA and an office in Florida. And most of our portfolio is basically California and then the East Coast.
So how did you start the company? I mean, what were you doing beforehand? What kind of led you? Were you always an entrepreneur?
It's kind of funny. So Sydney, I showed her the Jeff Jager podcast, and she's like, I was Jeff's first hire.
No way.
Yes. So.
And favorite hire.
Obviously. Okay, so I grew up in kind of real estate. My dad was a developer and not affordable housing. And obviously affordable housing wasn't a thing, way back when. But yeah, so I just grew up in real estate and figured I would end up there. And I moved out to LA in 2009, I think.
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you move from?
I moved from Maryland. And so I didn't know anyone and just applied for a job. And I happened to sit down in an interview with Jeff and Scott of Now Standard Communities. And so that's where I started and had kind of an exceptional 5 years of really learning everything and anything about affordable. And just, I loved the space. And I really thought it met that like perfect X where you find something that you love and you're good at, which is something like I talk a lot about. And so in 2015, went out and figured I would, just do a deal a year and I don't know, nap maybe. I don't know. I wasn't sure what I was doing.
Have 3 kids.
Right. There's no napping when you have 3 kids.
Well, I didn't have any kids. So I hadn't, I mean, I worked hard in my 20s. And so I hadn't gotten married, even though I had been with my now husband for many years and I hadn't had kids yet. And so I figured, yeah, eventually I'll have some kids and I'll, relax a little bit. And turns out I don't relax well. So, that turned into like 4 or 5 deals my first year. I had a baby, I got married, I did all of the things. And yeah, kind of just off we went from there.
What did you, I guess when you were growing up, your father's a developer. So you had an interest in real estate, or you just felt like it was something you knew, or it's like, I want to get into that, like kind of, and then interview with Scott, you saw a job description or something like that. And then did you have any skill sets? Like what did you study in college? All that kind of stuff.
I had no skill sets.
A lot of us
I
don't.
doubt that.
No, so, I think growing up, and this was, again, back in the day before email, and you drove and you saw real estate. Like, you did not have Google Maps, right? Like, so I would spend weekends. My dad was looking at real estate on weekends, and most of it was for office or for retail. But I learned to appreciate real estate, right? And understand location. And really, throughout my entire life, as we drive down the road, like I look out the window and I'm, taking things in. I think I learned that at a very young age. And that was something that was super interesting to me. I interned throughout college in different types of real estate sectors to try to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up with just like a general business degree. I didn't do exceptionally well in school, business writing or whatever was not my strong suit, but I graduated and I really wanted to work, and I started off in kind of finance and mortgage brokerage so that I could really get an underwriting base, which I think really helped me kind of layer on top of that because I understood income and expense and a balance sheet and all of those things. So that's where I started when I graduated. And then when I moved to LA, yeah, I didn't have a lot of work experience under my belt. So I actually started as an admin for Jeff and Scott and just said, look, like I'll start as your admin. I was young, but I want the flexibility to take on as much as I can take on. And they said, sure. I didn't stay an admin for very long because I just started doing anything that I could do. And that's really where I learned so much about not only affordable housing, but just about business in general, right? Like I learned more accounting, I learned asset management, I learned how to do applications. I learned all sorts of things because I was given that opportunity.
And it's interesting. I feel like the balance between impact and profitability is always something I'm sure you grapple with. Was there something that kind of pushed you into affordable housing that made you feel like, you know what, impact over, or are they balanced? How do you see that?
Yeah, so I don't wake up in the morning thinking about profitability. Like it's just not something that I actually care about, but impact is something that is extremely important to me. And maybe it's because I have kids now, but I think I have always gone to sites like throughout the last, 25 years of my career. And the people that are there, you know, I am super sensitive to and want to help. It's like just in me, right? Like the helping is in me. And so, I have kind of taken that, and now from seniors to families to children, like that is what is really exciting to me. And that's what propels me forward, is the ability to give our residents a platform to be successful.
Well, I'm sure there's folks listening to this and be like, "Wow, I would love to do that. I want to have impact. I want to do the best." Like, well, how did you start out? How did you even find your first deal? Yeah, I guess you kind of had a training with Standard, right? You kind of had like your apprenticeship almost, right? And then you were like, "I want to do this on my own." I guess what was the impetus to do it on your own, and then not on your own, but as separate from them? And then how did you start out with your first deal?
Yeah, so I kind of just reached a time when I thought this was a good time in my life. I was young enough where I didn't have any obligations, and I kind of figured, why not? I also was very lucky in that my dad had been in real estate. So, something I started looking at was an exchange deal for him. And I was like, well, can I look at an affordable exchange deal if I find something, and will you exchange into it? And so he said yes. And I said, okay, well, let's try something. And so that was the first deal I did in 2015. Was I exchanged into an affordable deal for him. And he had no idea what I was talking about, but he trusted me. And what's really fun is that, so there was a bunch of wonderful things that happened on that deal economically for him, but also that he exchanged into it. And then we took him out of his exchange, like 4 or 5 years later, and did a tax credit deal. And
Oh,
so,
cool.
that's kind of how I got started, but that is our strategy. Our strategy is preservation. Our strategy is long-term. And so, he really kind of gave me that start. And then from there, I was able to kind of find deals that were maybe a little hairy, but I understood and I could structure around. And I think really MRK is exceptional at financing deals. Like, that's really what we're good at. We provide exceptional housing with exceptional services, and we look at the larger community, but we're really good at finance.
And I feel like you're kind of known for tackling complicated deals, tax credits, layered financing. How did you, I mean, I know you worked at Standard, and your dad was kind of in adjacent real estate, but how did you even learn how to do that?
So I feel like when you believe in something, you kind of just keep pushing through, right? Like, there's a million walls that come up. Affordable housing is even more complicated than regular housing, right? Regular multi. But because you believe and because you know this is the right thing, you just keep pushing down the walls until you get to a solution. And, just because it's windy, it's always very windy, doesn't mean that you won't find that solution. And that's really, I think, what we've learned is we just say, okay, today's 25 problems, 10 of them are bad, 5 of them are no big deal. And, the rest of them we'll deal with later. But how do we just continue to tackle these problems to push it forward? Because pushing it forward is so much more important than being right about what you're doing, right? Push it forward, get to the end result. And if you believe in that, then I feel like you just do things and you get them done.
So you're buying existing assets, trying to find more creative financing around that.
Both. We're buying existing, doing AC rehabs, but also we are doing a lot of new construction right now. And actually, we have, in this kind of capital constrained world for market rate stuff, we've partnered with some market rate developers and are, instead of basically using that market rate land that they were going to develop market rate on, and doing affordable, which is really cool because usually that land is very well located for affordable housing.
That's creative. I mean, I think that's creative. Not many people are doing that. Are you like doing anything? Like, I found folks are like partnering with faith-based organizations and trying to find deals in like super creative ways out there. I
Yeah,
just
so
worked with somebody that like a Conifer just did it. They have an opening next week for office to or retail to resi conversion or something in the affordable space, which I've never heard about before. So it seems like there's
retail to resi.
maybe they just took an old mall potentially. I have to look it up.
My dream to live in a mall. Hang on.
Yeah.
Something
So
along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of doing all of those things. So we're in discussions with some faith-based organizations. We also are taking an office building in San Diego and converting that to affordable housing with retail on the bottom, with a preference for employees, city employees. So, we're kind of doing all of the things. We're doing a micro unit deal. We did the big mixed use deal in Miami not too long ago that had 578 apartments, 250,000 square feet of retail, and a huge parking garage. So we're just kind of touching everything that's complicated because, I think we can. And also those tend to be the most impactful deals because you are not only you're taking an asset and using that to kind of either jumpstart or revitalize a community. And to us, that's something that's really cool is thriving communities, both within our individual deals and also the larger communities themselves.
And do you find that, and I'm sure the policy is different in all the different areas that you're building, but do you find that you're struggling to kind of get through regulations? If you had a magic policy wand, is there something you would try to change right away?
It's crazy to me how this is a federal program, but is really so state and local based. It's very crazy to me. We have someone that works for us who was doing a master's, and it was basically like the paper was on like, why can't it just all be the same, right? Like why is it so, it makes it very difficult. So I think that is what makes it harder to get into, create some barriers to entry. And also for us has been what's kept us kind of in our core states that we're in. But I think that blanket across the country should be the property tax exemption for any affordable housing deal. Like it is crazy to me how it's not in every single jurisdiction. And we do deals without it in certain jurisdictions. But to me, like that is definite. And then, I think the bond tests, what we've seen with the bond allocation and volume cap over the last couple years, like the 25% test, which I know has bipartisan support and hopefully will get through at some point, but that is such an easy one, like from a federal perspective. So I think those two things would make an enormous amount of difference. Obviously, corporate tax rates and stuff like that really, really hurt, whatever it was 8 years ago. But I think those are like very easy things to make changes that would really help aid us in creating the number of affordable housing units that we really need in this country.
You mentioned you love the culture within MRK. What is that culture? How do you, as Lisa and I help run an organization, a lot of our job is trying to like keep a culture and get people engaged and, coming to work and loving what they're doing and like seeing the big picture. Like, is there any tricks of the trade or like, do you guys do anything specifically, or what is the culture?
So, first is like, I am a little bit of a crazy person. So that is number one.
No, don't say
Base case. You have to, like, I'm quirky, right? Like I'm different and I speak my mind and, leave conference calls with, I have to use the restroom, goodbye, right? Like those are like, I've had 3 kids. So I think that's number one, is allowing people to be who they want to be and making space for that. But I think most importantly for our culture, if you are not aligned with our mission, which really is to change our industry and change the world, you should not be at MRK. Because if you have mission alignment, then we have a vision that we're all working towards, and everyone understands that vision. Everything else can come. We can teach you about affordable housing, right? You want to eat like bean and cheese burritos every day, like you do you, whatever. But if you are aligned for this mission and you can put up with me, right, then you're a pretty good culture fit. So that's really what we start with, and think we've been really lucky to have hires that believe, because we have really well tenured employees. So lots of people have been with us from almost the start. And to me, they're like my family, right? Like they're my people. And that's how we look at each other at MRK.
That's nice. It's got to be hard to stay grounded. Oh, you're doing all these real estate deals. You're so focused on community impact. You have 3 kids. Do you do anything that helps you stay grounded?
Grounded. I am just trying to stay above ground, right? Like I'm like barely making it here. No, but I think look, I don't remember even what my hobbies are, right? Like I was thinking about that not too long ago. I don't know what they are. And honestly, I don't really have time for them right now, but I will say that I spend probably 45 minutes in the gym in the mornings and just in my garage by myself, well, at least for like 20 minutes by myself until my kids come in. And that to me keeps me grounded and gives me the ability to like deal with life. So I'll say that. And then, yeah, so I think that's really the biggest thing is just giving myself some quiet time, 5 times a week, not even every day.
I was, you mentioned services for the residents. So I run like an unofficial organization we meet like a lot of resident service people, and we kind of have a collaboration every couple months on Zoom, talk about different topics. And so I'm in that space. I've done searches in that space. Like what sort of, I guess, what sort of services do you provide They're all
So
like
we,
different, they're all different to your different populations, right?
yeah, well, a couple years ago, my husband and I founded a nonprofit, and that nonprofit is really centered around financial literacy and education. And so that nonprofit is Bloom. And so that nonprofit
Well,
provides Bloom, Bloom, like a flower. And that nonprofit provides those services to all of our assets. But in addition to that, we have our own resident services program, like within the MRK umbrella. And what we really found, we've done a lot of resident surveys because we really wanted to hear from residents. And what we really found was that post COVID, people really want community, right? Like they want connection. And that is, we all want connection, right? That's why I think it's important to go to the office. So creating connection, i.e., through health and wellness, having someone come and explain health and wellness goals, doing workout classes together, community potlucks, anything to kind of bring people
yeah.
together and to share resources. So that's what our internal group works on, is pretty much everything else besides financial literacy and education. And so that way we feel like we're giving kind of our residents a well-rounded platform, like I was saying earlier, where they can pick and choose what's important to them.
I love that. I mean, that's like dream to do something like that.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
hard.
It's my dream too. Take us with you.
Yeah, it's really hard though, because look, I don't think that it's not a perfect science. And to me, the most important thing is we look at outcomes and we continue to improve what we're doing based on those outcomes and measurable outcomes, right? That really means something. So, we just keep trying to get better. That's
It's
all
hard
we
to
do.
it's hard to measure those outcomes too, right? Like we work with Safe and Andrea Ponzer and all that. Like she's part of my group, and it's like, how do we measure the impact? It's like you can't really. It's hard. I don't know. It's hard to get an exact science. You can see it if you're there and feel it, but how do you measure feelings and like
It's
mental
really
health
hard.
and all that type of stuff? It's so hard.
Yeah. I think you had Bob Simpson on. Did I see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the MIC framework, he has this MIC framework, the Impact Council framework, and that's like a start, like that's a base case for some of the measurements. So we use that because we feel like it's important to ascribe to something that lots of people are committing to so that we can measure against each other. But then to your point, there are so many other metrics that are so important. You just, again, like you just add on to them and then continue to try to improve the system in which you're doing it.
Yeah, and nonprofits are always wanting, like, your investors want to see, like, well, if I'm giving you money, what am I getting? How are you affecting these out? And then you have these outcomes, and you're like, well, you got to actually go to the property, talk to the people, see what's
Yeah.
going on. I think that's the
Yeah.
best way to do it.
I think though that what's most fun is to actually visit the properties, because I think part of like the misconception around affordable housing is, number one, is it Section 8? And number two is, it's not the same as market rate. And so it's not just like the people that are out there talking about this, but just go to one of our sites. And like, I think you'll see that hands down. So, I think that's something that one of the reasons why I've tried to have more of a presence on social media recently is because how do we kind of get rid of these misconceptions and really help everyone understand that affordable housing is for everyone in your community: nurses, teachers, firefighters, your barista. You want someone to come work at your Starbucks? Well, then you need to have housing for them in your community. And this is how communities thrive. So,
Yeah, and like people got to know. Yeah, there's this misconception, like, and that's one of the reasons, like, Lisa and I do this, is to expose people. We have involved with education and all these parts just to expose folks to like what this actually is, because there's so misconception. At least I'm almost 50, and like, growing up, it was like affordable housing was like something. It was really negative. At
Yeah.
least like in my community where I grew up. Probably a lot of racism and all this kind of stuff, which, but essentially affordable housing was not thought of as a good thing. Right. And now it's like, I live in San Carlos, California, and down the block, they just did a groundbreaking for a affordable housing unit. And there was like, it was celebrated. Right. And it's different than it was. It's not necessarily these youth projects in the outskirts of cities like you see in, East Brooklyn, or at least I grew up. It's mixed in with communities, and you see the units, and it's like it doesn't look like affordable. Like growing up,
Right.
I thought affordable housing was, right?
Right. Totally.
I think that I can't remember if it was Bob, but we had somebody on the podcast who was talking about they spent some money, I think it was personally, to enhance the bus stop where the kids got off from school in the affordable housing. And I feel like I lived in affordable housing when I was young, and it's just, you just feel different, right? You feel, and so if you could bring programs, and I love what you're doing with Bloom. I feel like if you could bring programs to the children to help them to learn, to be a part of the business world, to kind of have that confidence, I feel like that is such a gift.
Yeah, that is the coolest thing. So we do scholarships every year, and I get to make the award phone calls. And it's not just scholarships for college, right? It's any accredited institution. So you want to go to cosmetology school, you want to be a nurse, like anything, and you get awarded. Like those are the most amazing phone calls that I make every year. They're my favorite by far because these are so important to people that ranging from like 18 to 65, 75. I think I awarded a scholarship. I didn't know her exact age, but she was definitely a senior. She lives at a senior community and she was wonderful and she's so excited to go back to school. And so it's opportunity, right? Like that's what you want to make sure that you're providing to people is giving them the opportunity to opt into things that they might otherwise have access to.
Well, offline, maybe there's a way that Chris and I can take our JL Access teaching young folks and giving them real estate skills and volunteer to do that with your community because
Totally.
I think it's so nice.
I would
I
love
thought you were going to say offline. I would like to get one of those scholarships. That's what I thought you were going to say. Well, Sydne, I know you love trampolining, and you love the action and being under pressure.
I do.
But you have just entered the most pressure you've ever experienced in your life because you've just sat on the hot seat.
Oh!
I think you can handle it.
I don't know. She's got a sweater on that might start coming off soon. I'm not sure.
It's very cold where I am.
Well,
Boca,
we're turning it up.
Okay, I'm ready.
bringing the air conditioning down. Well, we'll start you off easy. Are there any books or podcasts that you might recommend to people who are listening and want to be the next Sydne?
Nobody wants to be the next Sydne. Okay, so I'll give you a few books that are on my nightstand right now. And I really do try to read 20 or 30 minutes a night. Like I think it's so helpful and it also helps me wind down. I try not to use my screen right before bed.
Me
I can sleep.
too.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, but I try. So I'm reading The Whole Brain Child, which I think is really cool. So if you have young kids, it kind of talks about like the crazy mind and the logical mind, right? So balancing that, figuring out how to switch between those for your kids. I'm reading Deep Work, which I think is really interesting. That's the next MRK Book Club book. So the fact that we've gotten away from deep work, like deep thinking, and are so focused on
Deep
our
emotional
emails.
work?
No, deep like regular work, right? Like sit down and actually turn your stuff off and do work. So that's a really interesting one. And then I listened to a podcast actually not too long ago on the book The Sovereign Child, which I thought was really interesting. Again, I'm a mom, so I'm listening to some interesting things. And it was like basically completely flipping education on its head and how you parent and all these things. I think it was on the Tim Ferriss podcast. I think he did it with someone and they were talking about with the author of The Sovereign Child. So again, it was basically like give your child no rules. And I'm not doing that, but I did think it was a really interesting kind of way of flipping parenting on its head and just rethinking everything that we've done to date. So there's some books.
Cool. Those are good ones. I haven't heard Tim Ferriss in a while. He's like one of the
There you go.
godfathers of podcasting.
Yeah.
What is your most memorable deal?
I don't know that I have a most memorable deal. I'll tell you the deals that are memorable for me is anywhere where I go where someone's like, wow, I love what you have done for this community. I love the renovation you did, or I love my unit, or I love, the amenity space. Those are to me the most memorable deals. So, there's a lot of them, which I'm really proud and thankful for. And so I don't think I really have any one deal specifically. And I'm hoping I make a lot more memories in the future.
And tell me a little bit about how you do your hiring? I saw something on, I think it was on LinkedIn, that your first hire was your best friend. And I feel like that makes work so special. I mean, hopefully you're still best friends. I don't know. Even what's your philosophy on hiring? Do you have any go-to questions, things that you look for?
Yeah. So, I don't know how Kathy came to, like, why she would agree to work at MRK when she was like the first hire, but she did, and that was so lucky. But I think that what I really look for, it's not even the questions, it's just a feel from someone. So it's, are you the right culture fit, and are you going to work hard, and like, can you catch up, right? So I think those are really the two things that I look for. And are you considerate? Because I think that when sometimes, like, I'll look at someone and I'll just be like, are you fine? Like, are you going to make it today? Do you need a cupcake or an ice cream or something, right? And you want that feeling, because you want someone that's got your back. So I think we really look at those three things more than, did you go to a school? Do you have this background? I don't really care. I really don't even look at resumes that frequently, to be honest. I really just want to sit with someone and have a conversation and get a gut check.
You go beyond the resume.
Key. You go beyond the
resume. There you go. Exactly.
He just doesn't even see the resume. I mean, that's why people hire us too, because we go, like, our job is to go beyond the resume.
Right.
Like, everyone's got resumes, but we got to talk to these people, dig in and see what's going on. What makes them tick? What's their motivations?
Right. And are they a good fit? Because the worst thing is having someone that doesn't work out, not just for us, but for them too, right? Like, you want it to be a really good fit for all parties so that you head off into the sunset.
There's a fit for everyone's got the right cultural firm to be with. It's just not every firm, right?
Totally.
The right culture. What now we have a motto at Jackson Lucas that no one does this alone. We stand on the shoulders of others. There's no self-made person. Who are your biggest mentors throughout your career? You mentioned your father. I assume he's part of it, but like, who else has helped you along the way?
Yeah. So I completely agree with that. Like, we kind of say we like lock arms, right? So it's not just stand on shoulders, but it's lock arms. So I'll say that
Lisa's small, so she stands on my shoulder.
Oh, yeah,
exactly. All 5 feet of me.
Yeah, she might need that. That's fine. I'm a little taller. I don't know. I don't think anyone wants to carry me on their shoulders. But so I think, especially, I would say behind every woman who's successful is a team, right? Like, a team of people that are helping that person. I don't think I've had like a lot of formal mentorship over time. I think my dad has been a really big influence, but I would say my core group, so that's both personally and professionally, that kind of are there for me when times are tough or when you need extra. My husband, who's very helpful, our family at MRK who are there to support me, like literally support me over this last month. They've done my hair, they type for me. It's just these people that are there when you need it the most. And to me, like, there's nothing really more important.
Great answer. What does MRK stand for?
MRK is the middle initial of my siblings.
Oh. But not your middle initial.
No, not mine.
What's your middle initial?
My middle initial does actually happen to be M, but my brother's middle initial is also M.
I like that.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Sydne Garchik, thanks for coming on the podcast. It was great to finally do this.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.